Welcome back. Just days after inaugurating its first ever female president, Namibia is moving forward with its policy requiring visas for visitors from more than 30 countries. This excludes South Africa and several other African nations, but the likes of the United States and the UK will need to apply. For more details on this, we are now joined from Windhoek by Dr. Audrin Mathe from the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology. Dr. Mathe, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. This policy decision, of course, flowing back from a cabinet decision that was taken last year. Tell us more about what informed this decision.
Well, it's really in line with Namibia's foreign policy philosophy that we have a visa reciprocity with those countries that grant free access. We give them free entry into Namibia, visa-free, so to speak. So this is really what has informed that. We have several agreements with many other countries on similar policies. There are even countries in Africa, for instance, that do not reciprocate the visa-free policy. So that policy also applies to any other country.
Yeah. So is this more based on reciprocation, that if your country needs a visa from our country's nationals who are traveling to your country, therefore we would also require visas from people coming from your country to come and visit Namibia? Exactly
that. I mean, for instance, South Africa, most other countries, we do not require a visa to move among each other, except, for instance, if you move into Angola and Mozambique, DRC. But generally, all other countries, there is that free movement of goods and services. When you come to a country, we don't charge you for anything. If you come to your country, we don't charge that. So that's really what we're trying to strengthening. That we have seen in the past where we roll the red carpet for other countries to come here. But when we get into those countries, even when you have a diplomatic passport, it's always a struggle.
Yeah. From an ideological perspective, please help us make sense of this. What is it that the Namibian government is trying to deal with here?
Again, it's just enforcement of the visa reciprocal policy, where, as you summarize what I was saying, and that is that you come to our country visa-free, we get into your country visa-free, and then it should work like that way.
Yeah. Has there been any responses yet from the various countries that are now required to apply for visas that previously didn't, including the United States?
No. Well, what we've done is that this is not a new policy, really. It's a decision that was taken maybe either last year or the year before. I don't recall exactly. But this that is required is for us to have informed those countries that are affected. I know that some of the countries have informed their nationals that is from 1st of April 2025. That is a policy that will be in place in Namibia. So, but we have not had any complaints of any sort, because I think we have done our part to ensure that they get to be informed way ahead the implementation of the policy itself.
Yeah. Do you foresee any possibility that this could lead to some level of political tension between the various nations?
Unfortunately, I cannot see any future. I'm only telling you now that there have not been any tension of any kind from any other country. All I'm saying is that we know that they have informed their nationals that from April 1, if you go to Namibia, you are required to have a visa.
Okay. And how exactly would this happen? Because I see with others as well that at least when you arrive at the border post, at some border posts at least, you'd be able to apply for that visa.
There are two ways. One is that there is a portal. You can apply for your visa well in advance online. And then once you get proof of that, then you know that you may very well be issued the visa upon arrival. So in some countries, the visas are issued upon arrival.
The visas are issued upon arrival? Yeah. And are there any other changes that we could see in terms of your migration policy?
Well, this is what we have on the table now. And we're closely monitoring how that is going to be implemented. But we are ready from our side. Already, we know that some people have already used the platform to apply for visa for those countries that are affected to come into Namibia. So that is working very, very, very well. Last week, we had about 2,000 applications for visa online that were submitted to the Minister of Home Affairs here. So that shows that indeed people have become aware of the policy change and they are complying with it.
Yeah. Let's then quickly speak about the inauguration of the new president of Namibia, of course, the first woman elected president for SADC as well. And just perhaps maybe if you can speak to some of the key priorities. And for me, as we have this conversation, perhaps maybe even starting off with the geopolitics, if you are able to speak on that.
First of all, we're quite excited having to elect the first woman president for our republic 35 years after independence. This is no small feat. We have had countries that have been independent for a very long time. United States, for instance, they are over 220 years of independence. They have not succeeded to elect a female president. Here we are, a newly created born country in 1990. We managed to elect a female president in November last year. Obviously, she comes from an international relations background. She has been in that space for a very long time, way before independence. She has been a support diplomat in exile, propagating Namibia's liberation. So this is not a new territory at all. She's very familiar with the geopolitics of the world, and she understands the relations that governs Namibia, policy that governs Namibia in other states. So we expect that there will not be much policy shift. She has already laid out in priority areas. For instance, and that's part of the second question of the second part of your question.
Yeah.
She has laid out 7 pillars that will accelerate Namibia's economic development, including tackling the issues of land, housing, youth employment, mining, gas and oil. You have seen this. There was a lot of chatter in Namibia in the last 2-3 years regarding the exploration of oil, but also green hydrogen projects that are now being explored in Namibia. We hope that by the end of the decade, there will be a lot of progress made in terms of actual production than just really mere exploration.
Yeah. Last in 2023, when there was the AGOA forum that was taking place in South Africa, there were a number of plans that were outlined, and I wonder from Namibia's side whether they are looking at the conversation that is currently happening between South Africa. Not really conversation, but the tension between South Africa as well as the United States when it comes to AGOA, and whether there is a potential of South Africa losing that status, if that could have any impact at all on Namibia, and considering the reciprocal relationship that the country has when it comes to trade.
Namibia and South Africa, they are very close sister countries, dating way before the liberation struggle between SWAPO and the ANC. And after 1994, obviously there was a new government there that we were able to cooperate with. We are very confident that South Africa has the maturity to handle this matter very well. We are aware of the statements President Ramaphosa has made with regards to lowering tensions between South Africa and the United States. And that's a line that we're following. And we know that whatever it is that will be required of us to know, the government of South Africa, through diplomatic channels, obviously will praise all its allies so that we're on the same page.
Yeah. And finally, are there any plans for the president to make a state visit to South Africa anytime soon?
That is always on the cards. As I said, South Africa and Namibia enjoy very, very close relationship. Historically, we've been working together in many things. And I'm sure as things settle down, again, through diplomatic channels, we'll see exchange of visits between our new president, Dr. Netimbondani Ndaitwah, and President Ramaphosa, so that a number of bilateral issues could then be discussed. You'll know that in 2023, the last BNC took place in Windhoek. We expect that next year, that Binational Commission will take place in South Africa. We again will pursue the two countries' interests with regards to the social progression of our two peoples.